Hi guys, it's Mark Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, Mark Zicree of Space Command. I am in my Never, Never, Never Give Up t-shirt, which is my credo when it comes to making Space Command and all the other projects we're shooting. Now, I'm back from England. I had a wonderful 3-week trip with Elaine, and I was going to do a video talking about all the wonderful things we accomplished. We met with directors and actors, including Christina Chong of Strange New Worlds. Many, many things to talk about and update you, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to do that soon, because last night, of course, was the presidential election, and don't worry, I'm going to try not to be partisan in this commentary. I'm trying to give a message of hope to everyone, whatever their political spectrum. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about why science fiction is a great, great opportunity to do that. So obviously, if you've been following Mr. Sci-Fi for any amount of time, you know that I myself, politically, am a liberal, and as is Elaine, and so that's not a secret. But when I started Mr. Sci-Fi a few years ago, every now and then I would make a political statement, and some of the fans would send me messages asking me, please, not to mix politics and Mr. Sci-Fi, to basically stay out of politics. And so I created my other YouTube channel, Mr. Politics, which I post on once in a blue moon. But there were two ways to see that request. And one would be to see it as, shut up, pinko, or whatever. But the other was the more empowering one, and one that I appreciated, and one that I addressed and rose to the occasion of. It was an opportunity. Because when they said, don't mix politics and science fiction, what they were asking me for, as I interpreted it, was, don't say things that are going to push some of your audience away. Don't say things that push us away rather than include us in possibility. And I'm going to go into that thesis much more in the next couple minutes. But I did as what I was requested. And what it allowed me to do was to offer a message of compassion that was an invitation to everyone who would ever watch this channel or watch any of my work or Elaine's. And because what I stand for in this world, what Elaine and I stand for in this world, is compassion and inclusivity, which means science fiction is a big tent, and it welcomes everybody in if you come with a good heart. Obviously, if you're toxic, if you're looking to hurt people, that's not acceptable on any side of the equation. But if you want a future that's better for your children, for your grandchildren, a hopeful future, and for yourself, then that's a message that reaches across political boundaries. That's a message that I think any of us who are not insane can embrace. We want a future for our children, grandchildren, basically for everyone that's safe, that's happy, that's people get medical care, people get food, people have a roof over their head, people are not living in fear. This is, and again, you don't want to get granular, you don't want to get hyper-specific, because everybody's going to be able to point to some group and say, yeah, well, but these people, blah, 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 and then you fall into blame, and then you get into arguments, and then, no. I'm talking about this on a personal level. Trump has won, Kamala Harris lost. It was a fair fight. The numbers show the American public made its decision democratically, and that's the system. And so some of us are grieving at the moment, some of us are having a party. And but regardless of that, many of us hate the acrimony, the hatred, the anger, the rage, the polarization, all of that stuff. And here's the answer, wherever you are on the political spectrum, where science fiction is an invitation. In our personal lives, we can be compassionate. In our personal lives, we can let people in. This is exactly what a science fiction convention does. If you come in and you're not toxic and you're not on some kind of agenda, and I'm not talking about left or right, I'm talking about any agenda that's going to exclude people. You let people in. A science fiction convention, you'll see every race, every ethnicity, everything. And I welcome that. Some of my investors in Space Command and the Showrunners Network are on the left. Some are on the right. Some voted for Trump. Some voted for Harris. Some didn't vote at all, I'm sure. And that's fine, because we can meet in the middle with a message of love, of hope, of possibility, as science fiction always has. This dystopic books are a warning. Rod Serling and Gene Roddenberry were not cynics. They were not fatalists at all. And when you think of what they had lived through, these amazing men whose message was of a hopeful future and of humanity prevailing, of compassion prevailing, these are men who had lived through the worst that humanity could dish out. They are men who lived through World War II, the Depression, the Blacklist, the Vietnam War, civil rights struggles, assassinations. It was, it was a rough time, but they still had the vision to say, we can be better, we can do better. And millions of people, if not billions of people around the world heard that message, and they chose career as scientists, as doctors, as teachers, or maybe just in their personal life, they were more welcoming to others, more open to others, and also more loving in their own lives. So art can change the world for the better. Science fiction can change the world. We do not have to be in a shouting match. We do not have to polarize. We do not have to blame people. We do not have to point fingers. We don't have to do any of that. What we have to do is come from a loving heart. This is all my opinion, of course. If you disagree, if you're, ordering ammo or whatever you're doing, that's your journey. And I don't need to be right about things, but I do know in my personal life that I've been a professional writer. This year marks my 50th anniversary as a professional writer, and I met Elaine around that time too. So Elaine and I have been together 48 years, married 47. It's been a wonderful journey. I've been writing TV since I was 22 or 23, wrote The Twilight Zone Companion, started that when I was 21, sold my first short story at 19, had my first radio play aired when I was 18. Okay, so this has been a wonderful life, and I have gone through, regimes right and left, the Nixon, Reagan, LBJ, on and on, all of these strange, weird people. But on top of all of that, I have built a life, a loving, happy, joyful, creative life. And so here's a few things, a few messages I can give you of hope and ways that we can move forward positively in our personal lives. And this is where science fiction is so great, because when I was a kid, I never asked myself, well, what's the politics of this writer I'm reading? I just read all of it. Heinlein, Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, Ray Bradbury, on and on. And it was only during the Vietnam War that in one of the magazines, I think it was Galaxy, they had a 2-page ad. On one side were science fiction writers supporting the Vietnam War. On the other side were writers opposing the Vietnam War. And for the first time, I was a teenager at the time, for the first time, I realized which of the writers that I loved were right-wing and which of the writers that I loved were left-wing. So Ted Sturgeon and Harlan Ellison were left-wing. Heinlein, of course, was a libertarian, but he was, right-wing. And that was interesting to me, but it still didn't affect the fact that I loved all these writers, and that their message, whether left or right, was pro-humanity. I mean, Heinlein and Arthur C. Clarke and Ray Bradbury would all go on television promoting the space race. They all cheered when we landed a man on the moon. This was a great moment for humanity. They were not embracing it as a political statement, whereas I think many of the politicians were, but humanity saw it as a great moment of accomplishment. And so I think given that, we can celebrate. We can celebrate milestones. We can celebrate advancement. We can celebrate the good in our species, because for all the hatred, all the war and disaster and suffering and killing and all the dumb, terrible things that our race does ongoingly, we live in a time where we can now see that someone on the other side of the world is human, just as we are. They love their children. They want safety. They want happiness. We can see that at the push of a button going on the internet, and or making a Zoom call. Remarkable technological advances. Back when, around the turn of the 19th into the 20th century, you had wars where you didn't even have a sense of who the enemy was. You'd never met, many people had never met anyone from China or from Russia or wherever. They just were reading in books or drawing conclusions from racist stereotypes or ethnic stereotypes. We can have more access to, to the truth. We can actually see. And again, in terms of media, on either side of the equation, don't believe what you're being told. If you have a chance to actually go where things are happening. Go there. See for yourself. I promise you it will change your view, your opinion. Because when you travel, you see that everyone is a human being. Everyone, there's much more commonality. In my opinion, there's one race, and that's the human race. Honest to God. And the things that are menacing us, the things that are going to be challenges for the future, the more we embrace them as the human race, the more we see our common identity, the better things will go. This is, again, just my opinion, but here's messages of hope, okay? As I said, the power of art can transform. It can take a longer view. It can help us be better. You know, I was going to give an example of this. There was this guy who was born out of wedlock. He was a gay man. He lived in a country that was deeply religious, deeply oppressive. You couldn't say a lot of things that you might want to say because they would, arrest you, execute you. Terrible things could happen. And he was surrounded in his life by violence and death and war and ignorance on all sides. And what does he do? Who is this guy? Well, it's Leonardo da Vinci. And he created some of the greatest artwork ever made. And beyond that, he had an inquiring mind about science, about why the world was the way it was, why things worked the way they did. And he was pursuing scientific truth and knowledge. He was one of the greatest human beings ever born, one of the most amazing men ever born. And now people can look at his work and marvel at it. They can look at his phenomenal paintings and love them. And all of these people who were in power back then, the Medici family, the Ludovico Sforza, etc. Who thinks about them? Who talks about them? Historians, maybe? But Leonardo da Vinci's work is still current, still present, still making our world better. So that's what art can do, guys. So here's what I would suggest, among other things. And also, let's talk about how things are better now, whether or not Trump won. When I was growing up, I was the first generation, basically, where my entire life has been under the threat of nuclear annihilation. The generation before me didn't have that. They had, there was no way man could destroy the planet, could destroy everybody. But in my world, when I was a kid, we had drop drills where you'd go under your desk because, of course, the desks were invulnerable to nuclear attack. At least that's what they were trying to convince us of. But, and so, these are some of the books from when I was growing up. Here's Dr. Strangelove, a book about nuclear Armageddon. This is Red Alert, which is the book that Dr. Strangelove, was one of the things that was informing Dr. Strangelove, and then here is, I don't have the dust jacket for this one, but it's On the Beach, another story of nuclear annihilation. And while we still have nuclear missiles and the threat of nuclear destruction, I recommend, by the way, Annie Jacobson's book on nuclear war that just came out. It's excellent. But we're not under the active threat of it so much as we were. The Cold War is not going full steam. The Cuban Missile Crisis was the closest we came at that time. And my friend Nicholas Meyer wrote and directed The Day After, which was a TV movie about nuclear war, and it was shown to Ronald Reagan. It was shown to Mikhail Gorbachev, and they said, we must never let this happen. And they basically committed to stopping the possibility of nuclear war. And that's art having an effect on life. That's art and science fiction, which projects into the future. That's how we as science fiction writers can concretely make the world better. What I do is not, in my opinion, insignificant. I'm not on the sidelines just watching the parade go by. I know that work that I have made over the last 5 decades has changed the world for the better. I know that. I've talked to people, and I just know. The other day I was talking to someone about Far Beyond the Stars, and they were talking about how much it meant to them, and so forth. I've had many of those experiences. So here's other things to give you hope. My advice: don't get into shouting matches. Be more compassionate, as I said. All that stuff. Again, I'm not trying to do a political statement here. I'm trying to simply offer opportunity and possibility. It's wearying and it's soul-destroying to feel isolated, to feel apart. We don't need that. We really don't. And so for those of you who are sad today, take heart. there are better times ahead, and just being alive, just feeling the sun on your skin, being able to take a breath of air, this opportunity, this life is a miracle. And whether you believe in God or not, whatever altar you worship at, or choose not to worship at, um, this life is a miracle. We don't know why we're here. But we have been given a gift, all of us, and an opportunity. Take that opportunity, seize that opportunity, follow your dreams, follow your hopes. Don't give in to despair, and don't let hate overwhelm you either, or anger overwhelm you. There's a better road, and and let's talk about a few good things about Trump winning, and that's just good things. My God, okay. There's a lot of bad we could talk about if you're a liberal like me, but Trump. One good thing about Trump is that he doesn't want war. He understands that war does not bring advantage. He can do various and sundry things. We can get into all the specifics and all the complaints, but it would be much worse if he were trying to really stir things up to a point where we would have nuclear Armageddon. I don't see that guy doing that. Okay, it's, small comfort, but okay. The other part is Elon Musk. A lot of people feel Elon Musk has gone off the deep end, and I don't know what's going on with Elon. I've wanted to write him a letter for a long time saying, hey, maybe you should just stop tweeting and, get back to what you're trying to do on the larger scale. Because I read a biography of Elon a while back, and he actually wanted to be a superhero, and he thought, well, what can I do that will actually better humanity? And what he came up with was, well, solar cars, electric cars, electric vehicles, solar power, and settling Mars, so that we're not a one-planet species, so an asteroid impact won't destroy us as a species. Well, these are all laudable goals. These are and he's been doing it. I mean, I wondered why he was affiliated with Trump, because, Elon's the real deal, actually. You can fault him on a number of points. He's far from a perfect person, but he actually is the kind of hero, the kind of wealthy man, entrepreneur, getting us to the moon and all of that stuff that Robert A. Heinlein wrote about. He's very inspired by Heinlein, as am I. And so Elon Musk certainly believes that the global warming is real. He has made electric vehicles credible. When I was in London, people were driving Teslas. When I'm here in LA, people are driving Teslas. And now all the other car companies are introducing electric vehicles. So that's a positive good, whichever side of the spectrum you're on. And solar power. We've got this gigantic nuclear reactor that called the sun, a fusion reactor. And all that energy is coming our way, and it can be utilized. Great. And as for Mars, I really hope Elon makes it. He made... I mean, my God, what an amazing time where Elon builds a rocket that looks like this. I mean, this is out of the science fiction. This is out of the dreams of the 1950s. I mean, look at that. And when we see that thing go up into space, I mean, it's just phenomenal. And then it comes back down, and it's reused, and wonderful, remarkable, and brilliant, genius. And now that he's going to be sort of, teacher's favorite pupil, maybe that'll help us get to Mars sooner. Because I think, and here's the thing I think about Mars, because I watch a lot of videos about Mars, and some people say, well, it's not going to be, easy. It's not going to be what Elon says. It's not possible to colonize Mars. Well, if you study American history, you know that colonizing America was hard, was not easy. I mean, the colonies, a number of the colonies, the first colonies, everybody pretty much died, or vanished, disappeared. And it took a lot of grit and a lot of trial and error, and one could say a lot of genocide, but I don't want to go there because, our history is littered with crimes. Our history is littered with ways we might have been better, done better. Again, the blame game does not help. Okay, you're here now. Do better now. Do better now. Be compassionate. Be warm. Be open. You'll find that if you're friendly to other people, they'll generally be friendly to you, unless they're totally out of their minds. But most people aren't totally out of their minds. Honest, really. And but the point is that it was incredibly difficult for people to settle America, and a lot of people died. And I think that's going to be like that. What Mars at first will be. It is the closest equivalent here on Earth would be trying to live underwater, because you cannot go outside at all. You cannot breathe at all. It will kill you within moments, within minutes. That's Mars. And it's even worse because there's the radiation. There's all sorts of problems. But that said, there's water, there's light, there's a cave system. You can live in the tunnels. That will keep you away from the radiation. There's possibility, and we are an incredibly adaptable species. I mean, with this, we have no, heavy fur covering our bodies. We are not adapted to live in, Arctic regions, and yet we've lived in the most diverse environments that Earth offers, and we have survived, and that's remarkable. The worst of humanity is terrible. It's funny, Jane Goodall recently was on a talk show, and they asked her what her favorite animal was. And she said, well, not chimps. She said they're too much like us. So there's chimps she likes and chimps she doesn't like. But the species her favorite animal actually is dogs. And I think anyone who's a dog person can absolutely agree with that. Look at that face. Look at that face. Okay. But the point being, the best of humanity has done amazing things. Look out your window, or look around your room. All made by people. Phenomenal. We must cherish that and see it again as a gift. So we'll see what Musk does. Hopefully it'll be net positive rather than net negative. But at least he is a scientist. At least he knows physics. Again, one can go into all sorts of history and specifics and get granular. Don't. He's working on actually sending people to Mars. And I think if people are just determined and willing to take the risks it will take, and the phone will stop ringing in a second. But if they're willing to just not stop, be unstoppable, never give up, we'll get to Mars. We'll settle Mars. And then we'll go wherever else we want to go. There's that probe going to Europa now. We'll find out if there's life on Europa. As I've said before on Mr. Sci-Fi, my personal theory is that life is ubiquitous. That as soon as you really start looking for life elsewhere, we're going to find it all over the place. That's just my theory. We'll see if I'm right. But so what else? What else can I tell you? So, the thing is that in Space Command, I had the choice when I came up with Space Command. A lot of my friends are showrunners. That's the executive producers who run network shows, the people who are the writer, creators, producers. The buck stops with them on a show. They said to me, let's team up. We'll go in. We'll get a pilot deal. And I didn't want to be cut off at pilot. I didn't want to be cut off at script. And I did not want Network Notes to ruin what I wanted to create, which was, as I said, a hopeful vision of the future, a vision that everyone could embrace if they come with a good heart. Instead, and I had never raised money before, never. I had always just worked for the studios and the networks, all the major ones. I had offices at Paramount and Universal, and I'd worked for Disney and Marvel and CBS, NBC, ABC, BBC, even ITV. I wrote for Space Precinct, for God's sake. But Star Trek shaped me. When I was 10, it came out. Many of you know this story. I recorded it on reel-to-reel audio tape, this honking big monster of a tape recorder. Because there was no video then, there was no VCRs. If you wanted to preserve a show, you had to record it, and that was the best option. We didn't even have cassette tapes at that point. I was 10, but that show, more than any other show, said to me, we can make a better world. And Gene Roddenberry was doing this during the Vietnam War, during the cities were burning. It was a tumultuous time. It was LBJ, then Richard Nixon. Those were the presidents when Star Trek was airing. And nowadays, who's talking about our LBJ? Who's talking about Nixon? But I don't know, historians, people with time on their hands. But mention Star Trek, people know what that is. People know what that stands for. And I was just in England. People would say, well, you're a writer. What have you written for? When I said Star Trek, their eyes would get large, because that was something they loved, something they understood, something they embraced. They had genuine affection for it. And that's because it had a message that touched them, that meant something to them. It isn't just the gosh gee whiz. I mean, that had its effect too. Was because the reason I loved Star Trek, by the way, when I was a kid, I came from a divorced family. My parents divorced when I was 3. I was raised by a single mom. I'd see my dad's second family every other weekend in Orange County. I grew up in LA. I came from a shattered family, and I was an isolated kid. I was, it was hard for me to make friends. And Star Trek came on, and I saw that there were people, no matter the disagreements, that when the chips were down, they were there for each other. They were a family. So Spock might say something sarcastic, and McCoy might snap back with some insult about that green-blooded, blah, 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 blah. But when they needed to be there for each other, they were. And you could tell that they had a deep, abiding love for each other, care for each other. And I took that very much to heart. And I understood that that was science fiction. That was what science fiction was. And when I started going to conventions, and Ray Bradbury and Harlan Ellison and Theodore Sturgeon and all these great writers befriended me and took me under their wing, I saw that was my home. That was my home. And science fiction is amazing in that it's both escapism and it brings us right back to the real world. When you look at Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, the great Twilight Zone episode, that's the greatest piece of writing ever on mob hysteria. And all you need to do is show that to people, show that to kids, and say, look, this is what happens if you're manipulated by others to fear your neighbors, to hate your neighbors, to suspect your neighbors. Hate and fear cannot really build a world, but love and compassion and empathy can. So that's my 2 cents about this. And I hope if you voted for Trump, you didn't get your nose too out of joint. And I hope if you voted for Harris, this gave you some hope for tomorrow and the day after and the day after. We've survived many, 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 many terrible things, and we're still going. And I love this world. I love the fact that you guys watch me from anywhere, wherever you are. We're still selling shares in Space Command at $7,500 each. We're now selling shares in the Showrunners Network, which is 5 new series that I'm creating with the creators of The Expanse and Farscape and Alienation and Sequest and Defiance, and the executive producers of the TV show Evil and many other great shows. It's a remarkable time. And in fact, we just sent off a project to the executive producer and director of 24, a thriller that we want to do, and that would be part of the Showrunners Network as well. So if you're interested in investing in Space Command or the Showrunners Network, or both, just email me at markzickery@gmail.com. I'll be happy to send you the information. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. You are what makes me go. You are what is my reward. You are my happiness, as is, of course, Elaine. Elaine, every day, she's the best part of every day for me. And for many, many people, I think she's a beacon of light. I hope in your lives, you have people you love, you have things you love, you have joy every single day. And it's going to be a very interesting 4 years. I think I came up with a term not long ago that I wanted to share with you again, dysutopia, which is a combination of dystopia and utopia, and that's what we continually live in. Okay, it's not dystopia, it's not all bad, and it's not a utopia, it's not all good. The world can always be a better place, but there are wonders in it. People are wonders. Our toys are toys, and the things that we use on a day-to-day basis, our cell phones, our televisions, all of this stuff. It's a miracle, guys. I mean, Elaine, when I went to England recently with Elaine, she had, over the last couple of years, she's had 2 shoulders replaced and a knee replacement. She can't go through security at airports. They have to, scan her and alarms go off because she's made of metal. But she has no pain in any of those areas. She can walk full steam. We're 148 years old, the 2 of us. We combine our ages because our birthdays are both in August. But she was able to move and have a full, happy, great vacation because of the medical marvels we have now. She can see because of corrective surgery to our eyes. These are things that wouldn't have been possible even 100 years ago, even 50 years ago. I am so grateful to this world, and to all of you. So wherever you are, whatever you're feeling today, know that you're not alone. And for those of you on the left, right, center, orbiting around the Earth, wherever you are, those two astronauts up on the ISS, poor guys. Oh my God. But wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, take heart, have hope, be loving today, and we'll talk again real soon. Bye, guys.